We are back for another episode of What's the Big Idea as we look at the sermon from this previous Sunday. For those of you that are here, you'll recognize that we are here with Justin Bieber, traveling missionary and superstar. No, I'm just joking. This is Matt. I mean, some of you weren't sure. And so we're continuing our look at Acts, and you can talk about the Bieber thing in a second if you want to. But we're continuing Acts and continuing in Paul's first journey. And honestly, I couldn't remember. We mentioned it last week, which is the only reason I knew that he didn't just make a loop. He reverses course and comes back. So we're on the reverse.
That's right.
The reversal. It's like when I used to coach cross country a little bit. And that's a tough gig. Assistant coach cross country, real tough. You stand at the bike trail. You stand at the bike trail over there by Lower Megs, and you'll be like, "Hey, run until you get to this road, and then turn around and come back." So shout out to Mel Ware for teaching me all that he knew about coaching cross country. But for this past Sunday, first of all, we'll start off with what's the big idea, and for those that weren't here, why in the world are you known as Justin Bieber in other parts of the world?
Known as might be a strong, might be a little strong. The big idea was a mighty God does miraculous things for us and through us. And pause there for a second. I wrestled with that big idea a lot this week. I was phrasing it a different way, and I changed it at the last minute, and I'm glad I changed it. I think that was the right way to put it. But looking at the miracles in Acts chapter 14, specifically, we started with the miracle of Paul healing the lame man, and then obviously a later miracle is Paul is stoned and he gets up and walks away. But we also talked about the ministry of just salvation and the miracle of ministry. So kind of lumping all those together, miracle upon miracle was the thing. So the Justin Bieber story. I thought I had shared that before, but I guess not, because there's a lot of people who...
When the second service started, you were getting ready, and I looked at Julie. I said, he's fixing to tell a story that I'd never heard.
Yeah.
Which I'm surprised.
Well, there you go.
The reality is you could have told me, and my memory's pretty terrible. But I feel like
this was a long time ago.
This was when you first...
Yeah, this was 2009, so almost 20 years ago. But so repeat. So context. Paul... when they go to Lystra, do the miracle, the crowd gathers, and they start calling Paul and Barnabas Zeus and Hermes. And so the question was, have you ever been mistaken for someone else? And mistaken. Have you ever been mistaken for someone else? And honestly, that was one that I was going to say something different, and on the fly that morning, it was like, it popped in my head, like, oh yeah, that's even better. So,
Really?
Yeah. I was going to make just like a joke about, some random person, right. But then I was like, no, that really happened. And I went to East Asia on a mission trip. I've shared that actually several times in the podcast.
Right.
Serious note, that was a super formative month of my life. But while I was there, only young white dude, probably for miles around. We were in some rural, not remote, but rural areas. We weren't in, like big cities.
Right.
And so man, like here I am, young, 20-something, swoopy hair, guitar, and I had a lot of Chinese teenage girls say, "It's Justin Bieber." Now, they knew that I wasn't, right? It's not that close. But in all seriousness, they thought pretty much any white American was famous. And so everywhere you go, like, oh, sign my autograph. Oh, he looks like Justin Bieber. Sign my autograph. Yeah. So Batty Claire asked me yesterday, she said, did you sign Justin Bieber or did you sign your name? I was like, I signed my name, 100%. I'm going to forge anything. But anyway, so yeah, my claim to fame. Yeah. Only time someone texted me afterward and was joking with me about it. I said I had to go halfway around the world before I found somebody who thought I was cool. So whatever it takes.
Ask for your autograph.
Yeah. Haven't had anybody ask for it since.
Well, you know what? I'd take it.
I did have a kid ask me to sign his Bible one time, like at camp or somewhere, like I spoke or something.
Yeah.
I was honored by that.
Okay. I used to give away autographed pictures of Wayne when we were doing
PW.
when we would do an Easter egg, an old youth Easter egg hunt here at the church, and have the numbers in the eggs.
Yeah.
One of the gifts would typically be an autographed picture of Wayne.
Oh man, that's great.
Or so get him to autograph like something. He'd write notes on all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So
he texted me yesterday, by the way. Shout out, Pastor Wayne.
I was trying to think of, when you asked, have you ever been mistaken for anybody? I couldn't really think of anything that hit me today. When I moved back to Moultrie in 2015, carrying around a little less weight, so I was a little skinnier, glasses, all that stuff. I would get confused for Kevin Hopper.
You had shorter hair then too.
I did. Yeah, if I didn't have all these weddings coming up, the hair would be short already. But neither here nor there. I'm not bitter about it, if that's what you're trying to say. And so
we can make it a VBS thing.
I can't. I got Lilla's wedding after that.
Lilla don't care. Hey, it's for the sake of the call, Lilla.
And so and then I found out through talking with Kevin, he would get mistaken for me. So,
So he played a little baseball, huh?
It's not Justin Bieber, but it's Kevin Hopper. Local celebrity. But one of the things, kind of to step into one of our questions for today, the misunderstanding of who Paul and Barnabas were created some obstacles a little bit. They had needed to, pump the brakes a little bit. Let's kind of clear the air of who we are and what's really going on. And there are times that we can, just Christians in general, there are misunderstandings about Christianity and Christians in general. There are perceptions that sometimes we have to battle against, and maybe what is one, or what are a couple of those things that maybe in today's context, if somebody finds out you're a Christian, maybe they have a belief built upon whatever it's built upon that is an incorrect thing that now we have to overcome if we're going to truly try to minister and share the gospel.
Thinking about that, obviously we kick these questions around a little bit beforehand for the viewing audience. But even as you were just asking that question again, something else popped to my mind. I really think you have to think about this in two ways. I think number one, sometimes we can be mistaken in like a negative way. And then sometimes we can be mistaken in what people intend to be a positive way.
Okay.
So let me speak to the negative way first, because I think that's the one that naturally we would think of. How are we mistaken?
Right.
And that's you think about, well, Christianity is just, that's just a bunch of hypocrites, or y'all were just, legalistic. And especially if what church you go? I went First Baptist. Oh, like there's stigmas that go along with our faith, right?
Right.
And I think sometimes the world looks at us as we follow Jesus, and there's this sense of, well, I already know about that. I don't want anything to do with that religion. And so we have to have some clarification, there, which in Paul's case, right, they were mistaken for two Greek gods. How did Paul combat that? He combated it with the truth. No, you're wrong. That's not who we are. And he points them to Jesus. And so in that case, I would tell the person who, hey, if you're having a conversation with someone, or if someone has a mischaracterization maybe of Christianity, what's the best way to deal with that? Well, we don't bow up and get mad,
right.
or we don't shut down or ignore them. I think instead we just point them to Jesus, the same way that Paul did, right? Well, hey, why would you think that? Why do you think that we're hypocrites? Give them an opportunity to have that conversation. Why do you think we're legalistic? What makes you say that? What experience led you to believe that? And here's the thing, like, let's be honest, sometimes we don't help ourselves. Sometimes we play into those mischaracterizations, right? So I think we combat that just by gracefully sharing the truth of the gospel, acknowledging our shortcomings, but trying to point to Jesus.
Yep.
Now let me flip it over. I think sometimes too, we can be mistaken in a positive way. And this would be almost more of the idolization, celebrity stuff, like you see a pastor who preaches a revival or a message and has people come to faith, or, has a big platform, and all of a sudden it can become this, like people can make you out to be bigger than you are, which
Right.
is more what happens here.
Right.
The lost people, they're pagans, right?
Mm-hmm.
They see this divine miracle that God works, and they assume, it's these men are more than mere mortals.
Right.
And so they go to Paul and Barnabas, and it's, we're going to sacrifice to y'all, and we're going to celebrate. And what you don't see Paul and Barnabas do is say, bring it on.
Right.
Like, yeah, we're super awesome. We're better than you. No, they're horrified, right? I mean, ripping their clothes. No, please. Like, this is far from what we need to do. Instead, let me point you to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe a stronger warning, I think, for a lot of us would be it's very easy to make ministry about yourself. And if anybody mistakes anything, it's us when we make it about ourselves, right? And so a lesson that we can learn, I think, from Paul is it's always about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And let's redirect. If people give us praise or people flower us with those compliments, it's very easy to get puffed up. No, let's redirect to Jesus. It's not about me. It's about who Jesus is and what he's done for you. So
Right.
I think you could really answer that in two ways,
Yeah.
negatively and positively. So anyway, kind of first thoughts on that.
I think as we talk about, especially the second one, the second path you talk about, thinking John the Baptist, kind of falling into that same category. He had people wanting to elevate him beyond what he very clearly understood his role to be. He is the famous verse, he must be great,
John 3:30.
I must become less, and it's the he greater than I sticker that you see on some cars comes from that same. It's coming from that verse, but that was because John had a very clear understanding of his role and responsibility. Some of the people that were around him that loved him and that had been around him, it wasn't even. I think some of that's not even from like they're not trying. They don't view it as like, whoa, hold on, like John, you're John, like you've been out here preaching the word, and like, man, you've taken some grief about it as well, and we want to encourage you, and we want to continue to follow you, and
Satan's really good at twisting that, though.
And John really consistently points to Jesus, and so I thought of him just as you kind of mentioned that, that elevated by others, as when we saw Paul and Barnabas. Hold on a second, let's have a correct understanding. John was very similar. John the Baptist was very similar. And just on the negative side of life, or the negative connotation sometimes it comes with Christianity, one of the things you said is listening to somebody, trying to understand why, if they have this perception. Well, what's helped to create that perception, and that requires being a really good listener.
Yeah,
and I think that may be one of the things that sometimes we get. That Christianity in general can get a bad rap. We don't. It's not listening,
right?
And so, just trying to listen well, and then take what we've heard and take what they're sharing, and now let's look at what do we see in the life of Jesus? What do we see in the scriptures that points in this direction? We don't have to. I don't have to come up with a defense. I don't have to get aggressive and defensive, and I can listen well and look for the answers that Scripture is going to point us to.
Right.
So that's much better than any answer I'm going to come up with on my own anyway.
Yeah, I think just remembering what it's all about, right? Like Paul and Barnabas were absolutely horrified that the attention was taken off of Jesus and put on themselves.
Yep.
And I think if most of us are honest, we kind of like attention.
Yeah.
We would never want to be accused. We would never want to intentionally overstep, right? And block the spotlight from being on the Lord. Not intentionally, but it's very easy to get there.
Yeah.
And we have to be on guard against that.
That's right.
Anyway, a slightly different way of approaching that question, but I think it's very valid.
Yeah. And that was the where your Bieber story was born out of that discussion right there.
I did not act like I was Justin Bieber, for the record. I clarified I was not him. He must increase. Let me play you a song, and you will quickly realize that.
Let's see. God of the City? Was that one of the ones?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, you've seen a
remember,
video of that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, some of the there were a couple of songs that I'm trying to remember. Golly, that was so long ago. We were teaching English at a school, and I want to say I taught "Amazing Love" was one song that we did. There was another one. I taught him the verse about Jesus saying, "You are the light of the world. The city on a hill cannot be hidden."
Yep.
We did a song based on that. But yeah, we didn't do any. We didn't do any songs that would have been on the top
Yeah.
20. You know, on the Billboard countdown.
You weren't YouTube famous or anything like that.
No.
So, and, you just make sure to point them in the right direction. One of the other things that we see, and we're going to continue to see as we work our way through Acts, as Paul has these multiple journeys. I think it's three specifically that we
three missionary journeys is what we would call them. The fourth trip would be his journey to Rome as a prisoner.
And so, so this pattern of Paul going to a place and he spent time there and he preached the gospel and they would stay various amounts of time. And then to the next place. And we talked about that pattern a couple of weeks ago. Sometimes that was born out of kind of obstacle growing into persecution. It's time for, in his wisdom, it's time for us to move on to the next place.
Yeah.
Although we did see him go back to some of these places this past Sunday. But one of the things it mentioned, and I was looking in verse 23, you had the note right there, that Paul would appoint or they would assign elders for these churches. And so just a couple questions stemming out of that. One, what's the importance of that? And what's the, in our context from a First Baptist Church standpoint, what's the kind of the equivalent to that?
Yeah. Let me read these verses just so we have some context. This is Acts 14. Trying to see my Bible over the mic here. Can't decide if I want to go up or down. I
don't know if you need my glasses.
I'm gonna go up. So this is Acts 14. This is verse 23. It says, "When they had appointed elders for them in every church, with prayer and fasting, they committed them to the Lord, in whom they had believed." So Paul, we talk about Paul being a missionary, and he was, but really, as much as anything, Paul was kind of a quasi church planter. He didn't plant a church and stay there for years on years every single time and then move on. No, but he would go, he would find a group of people, share the gospel, help get a church started, move on to the next place. And one of the things that we see Paul do throughout his missionary journeys is he often likes to revisit those churches and check on them, make sure they're doing good. Well, that's where the letters come from, right? I mean, the epistles are him communicating with these churches that he helped birth. But in that, one of the things Paul obviously did, and I don't know that I ever really paid attention to this verse until this week as I was studying it, but we just didn't have time to deal with it in Sunday morning, is that it says he appointed elders. And let me just first of all define the term. An elder is one of the two offices that we see in Scripture,
right?
Deacon, elder, right? 1 Timothy 3 is a good parallel. Titus 1 would be the other one, where you see the elder described a little bit as far as qualifications as much as anything. You don't ever really see a biblical passage that says this is what an elder does. It's not spelled out. We see it more in the context of Scripture. But the elder is the overseer. The word bishop, overseer, elder, episkopos is the Greek word there. That is one of the ones I do know.
Yeah.
And it just means overseer. For us in our context in the Baptist church, generations ago, the term pastor kind of became synonymous with that, and that's our term is pastor. So you and I, as pastors of our church, would be considered elders. An elder is a leader in the church. He teaches in the church. He has oversight of the church. And so Paul appoints those elders. And I'll be honest, when I first read that term, I'm like, I don't know that I like that term, because it seems like Paul just went around doing what Paul wanted to do, So just thinking about it, and honestly, I haven't done a deep dive on this. Okay, so this is somewhat shooting from the hip, but I thought about it practically. Number one, well, who else is going to appoint an elder in the church at Lystra?
Right.
Who else is going to do it in Iconium? There hasn't been believers there. They're looking to Paul to say, we don't know what to do. Show us how to follow Jesus. And so Paul looks and he says, all right, well, the church is birthed. We need some structure. We need some organization. Somebody's got to lead here because I'm not staying. I'm
Right.
going back to Antioch of Pisidia, or I'm going back to Cyprus, or I'm going back to Antioch, proper. And so somebody had to be in charge. And so who better to say, out of all of you, you have the gift of teaching and you have this gift of leadership, and I'm charging you to lead the church, or you have a better understanding of the gospel and the word. And so Paul was kind of able, maybe a word that comes to my mind is to curate, I guess, the leaders there and kind of figure out, all right, let me figure out who's going to be the guy. As I thought about this, a verse came to mind that I looked it up earlier. Speaking of Titus, again, Titus chapter 1 would be the parallel to 1 Timothy chapter 3. Paul tells Timothy something similar. Not Timothy, tells Titus. Titus actually was a pastor on the island of Crete. And here's what Paul tells Titus. Titus 1 verse 5, "This is why I left you in Crete, so that you might put what remained into order and appoint elders in every town as I directed you." So it wasn't just Paul. He tells Timothy and Titus, hey, it's your job to appoint elders. And so I thought about that. Okay, well, how does that translate to today? Because I don't arbitrarily say, thou art an elder, right? We as Baptists, we take a very congregational approach to church polity, meaning that we believe that the congregation has the final say on matters. That's why, like this coming Sunday night, we've got church conference. Our church votes on certain things. I don't just say, here's what we're doing, deal with it.
Right.
We bring recommendations to the church body. Chase a rabbit here. And the reason we believe that is because of a concept called the priesthood of the believers. You ever heard that term? Meaning that it's 1 Peter chapter 3, the idea is that every single one of us is the same in the eyes of Jesus. I'm not in a higher position than the average church member just because I'm a pastor, right? I have responsibility,
right?
But you can speak to Jesus the same as me. You can hear from the Spirit the same as me. You're going to stand before Jesus the same as me. And so we believe that the church has the say. But think about your ordination. Think about when you were called to be a pastor, right? When the church set you apart for that role, appointed you as an elder. Let's use Paul's term. Put you on the spot. Like, who made that decision?
I mean, I was in Tennessee.
Let's give some context first.
Yeah, so I was in Tennessee.
Okay.
And here in Moultrie, I was ordained as a deacon. 2010 maybe. We left in 2011, and it wasn't long before that.
Yeah.
And even once the conversation came up about me going to doing ministry, Wayne and I had some conversations about doing ordination here.
Yeah, before you left.
Pastoral ordination, ministerial ordination. So, but like honestly, like I didn't even really I'm like, I don't even know. Like, nah, don't worry about that. I'll go up to Tennessee and figure this thing out. I mean, I didn't know what I didn't know in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I was there for a little while before Jimmy and I had sat down and kind of had a conversation about being ordained into the ministry, and then so Jimmy probably at that point.
Yeah.
And now I sat in front of the deacons, and we had the council. And,
okay.
Not a lot to it, honestly. I'd have benefited way more from what we're doing a little bit more now.
Like what we did with Eric
recently.
Yeah.
That would have helped me tremendously.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're doing it.
as a very new, being very new to ministry. But Jimmy, it was really, again, Wayne and I had a conversation here.
Yeah. Jimmy started the process, and then you went to an ordination council where there was a group of men who examined you, right?
Sure, yeah. Yes. Wink, wink, nod, Bob's your uncle. Then we went to the church and had a service that night.
Right.
Left the council and walked into the sanctuary.
Yeah. Do you have an ordination certificate?
I do.
If you don't, are you really a minister?
I don't know. I was going to say something about it coming from Tennessee. Does it even count? But somebody from Tennessee, right. I happen to watch this. I love y'all.
Seriously though, you do have like a certificate, right?
Yes.
Is it in your office?
Yes. Yeah.
did the people who were on your ordination council sign it? Yeah.
Yes. I think so.
Yeah. And here's why I asked that. Same for me. I have mine hanging up above my desk. And you know why? Like, I know we're all over the place here, but do you know why I hang mine above my desk? It's not so that I have people sitting across from my desk look at me and say, oh yeah, he's good. He's got that certificate. I have it there because of the men who signed it.
Right.
It's a reminder to me when I look up and can see it when the light's not glaring off of it. I can see those names of the men who were there in my ordination council. Here's why I bring that up. Because even though in the Baptist faith, traditionally the church has the final say on polity matters and decisions, in the act of ordaining an elder or ordaining a pastor, a minister in our vernacular, it's that ordination council who really makes the decision to bring it to the church.
Right.
And the ordination council traditionally is comprised of ordained men, other elders, or sometimes deacons, depending on the church, right?
Right.
For instance, Eric, we ordained Eric as a minister, it's been a year and a half ago now, maybe somewhere around that. That didn't come from the floor of the church at a church business meeting. It came from us as the ministers who said, all right, we see in Eric now the gifts and skills and calling, and we believe it's time to affirm him in this role. We did a period of examination. We took it to the ordained men of the church, and the ordained men said, we recommend him as an elder, right? As a minister. So even though we have congregational polity, the process is still very much driven by those who are in ministry.
Right.
And so back to Paul's case, Paul was an apostle. And so he had this unique qualification as an apostle to appoint elders, right? God has called me. He's led me. He's uniquely positioned. I know the teachings of Jesus. Here's who needs to lead the church. But what you don't see from that point on, you don't see, all right, hands off. It's just only the apostles can handpick. It's not that. It becomes more congregational at that point. Now, every denomination is different. The Presbyterian church, for instance, or the Methodist church, their pastors are appointed. The church has some say in it, but we're more congregational in our decision making. But I guess to kind of sum it all up, the point is when you look at this passage, we don't want to take away from this. Well, I guess Pastor Matt just needs to be the one who makes all the decisions.
Right.
That's not it. Instead, there has to be a leader, right? There has to be somebody who is taking the lead in these decisions, and we bring them to the church for that confirmation.
Right.
But so I don't think we're as different maybe as it would appear from what Paul did. I think the elders, pastors, ministers are still the ones who are recommending elders, right?
Yeah.
And then the church ultimately decides.
Yeah. It's the part of it's the reminder of Paul's calling on his life. Paul's calling on his life was not to be the one that stayed.
Right.
And shepherded a congregation for years and years and years.
Right.
But he understood the importance of it.
Yeah.
He understood the importance of having people. When I've come and I've shared the gospel and we've got some believers, however long I'm here for, and now we have a local body.
Right.
Somebody or somebodies need to be the ones that are going to say we're overseeing this group of believers, and so if nothing else, we see that Paul is saying that's an important part of my ministry.
Yeah.
Is I'm not leaving and just saying, all right, good luck, and maybe I'll catch you on my way back by, and but he had people, and we do. You mentioned, Titus and then Timothy, so we do get to see a little bit more about those two in particular. I mean, we know that Timothy traveled with Paul,
right?
And then Paul, I think it's Ephesus, if I'm remembering correctly.
He was.
Timothy becomes
That's correct.
Becomes the
pastor,
elder, pastor at the church at Ephesus. Well, we know Timothy had traveled with Paul and served with Paul and learned and had put into and had probably been given various responsibilities at some of these other places, and then Paul's like, all right, now I'm leaving and you're staying.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought him up because I wanted to mention this as well. It's interesting. You see both things. Like in the case of Acts 14, it appears to be that Paul is appointing elders from within the body.
Right.
Right? They're raising up people from within. Timothy wasn't from Ephesus.
No.
Timothy was sent to Ephesus by Paul and said, and same with Titus.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you're going to Crete and you're going to be the pastor of that church. And that's more akin to what we do today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a guy comes, I'm not from Moultrie originally, right? At the same time, I think there's something really healthy about raising up leaders from within the church. And what I love about our faith family here particularly is we've had that, right?
Right.
I mean, you're from this church.
Mm-hmm.
Eric is from this church.
Right.
You know, I mean, we'll claim Jimbo too, right?
Yeah.
He had a stint here before. Like every one of our ministerial staff, Brian and me even had previous stints here as on staff here at this church, and we're all here again,
right.
And I think that's very healthy instead of just a church saying, I'm just going to go shop around and grab whoever I want to get.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, as he appointed these elders, it was evident that he was training these men up. And I think that's a vital aspect of this too. Right. It's not just, well, you look good,
right.
Go get them, he appointed them. And the other thing maybe to mention, just to kind of wrap it up, is we've talked about prescriptive, descriptive a lot, right? As we go through Acts. Remember, this is a unique situation in a unique time.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a church in this area. There aren't believers to handpick from, right? So it took time to develop these elders, or maybe you had to bring in somebody from the outside. It's a little different now, right? How many Christians are in Colquitt County,
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I just think the intentionality with which Paul did this sets us up for what we do today, and to say we want to examine, we want to make sure we call good men. There's a period where they are reviewed by the elders, right, and they make that recommendation to a church to say we believe this guy is called and needs to serve.
That's right.
And I think those are good principles for us to follow.
Yeah. Something kind of related to this. Doesn't have to necessarily always be from an elder standpoint, but just part of the job is as ministers is to try to recognize and see giftedness in people and look for ways to encourage that and give them opportunities to grow and use that. Because if the time comes and they're not here and they go somewhere else, maybe they're going to step into have opportunities.
Right.
And so, one of the big things in kind of Georgia Baptist Next Gen ministry stuff with Chris Trent, who's our kind of over Next Gen for the state.
He probably listens every week.
He probably does. Shout out Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Cameron too, probably. Since Chris took on that role a few years ago at this point now, he's been really intentional. We want to talk about and as a part of a decision or as part of invitation at Impact, he always has an evening where it's very much, hey, maybe you feel called to ministry.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily know what it looks like. We're not saying you've got, I know the next 10 steps to my call to ministry. Ada went down one of the invitations and just kind of had some conversations and sat in on some Zooms and I don't think Ada would tell you now like I feel called to full-time ministry, but and that's okay. But he wants this
calling
this reality
out the call.
being put in front of our students of, hey, maybe the Lord is calling you to ministry at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and you may not know what it looks like right now. But let's give you some tools and give you and then put some people in your life that can just help.
Yep.
Because we are, whether we realize who it is or not, we are raising up leaders for the church down the road. They're leading now, but we're raising up people that are going to be, they're going to be pastors. They're going to be Sunday school teachers. They're going to be leaders on kids ministry and women's ministry and men's ministry. And so we want to start giving people opportunities earlier than maybe we had seen for a while.
Right.
I feel like there was like a gap of not a lot of calls to ministry and people not feeling called to ministry. Well, let's one point out that's a thing. And again, part of our job is to help equip the saints for the ministry, whether that's going to be here congregationally in First Baptist Church, or whether that's wherever the Lord's going to take them down the road.
One thing one thing with that I think it's important to emphasize, even going back to this text, notice that Paul didn't do this right away.
Right.
You know what I mean? Paul appoints elders, like if picture the map, right? Like, all right, I'm trying to do it from the camera perspective. We go from Antioch, Cyprus, we sail up, we go up to Antioch of Pisidia, and we come back over here to Iconium, Lystra, and Derbe, right? Paul doesn't appoint elders in any of this part. He appoints elders on the way back, right? So these churches had been established, the gospel's going out, these guys are growing. All right, by the time, I mean, again, this is taking years.
Right.
By the time Paul comes back around, all right, now there's a regular group of believers who are meeting, and it would have been easier to say, this is a sound leader, right? We're going to appoint him as the official leader of this church. Yep. And so to our application, we don't rush into this process. Right. Matter of fact, Paul tells Timothy, don't be hasty in the laying on of hands.
That's right.
Right? Appoint elders, but do it strategically, intentionally. And we have to make sure we're discipling these, not just young people, but anybody who's called before they're sent out into that role. So that's part of it too.
Yep. Well, we will be going to have a large chunk of scripture for Sunday as we continue to move forward in Acts. And anything you want to, any preview of the coming attraction for Sunday to share before we finish up today?
Yeah, we're going to be in Acts chapter 15, looking at the Jerusalem Council. I was just checking because you mentioned it's long. I was checking back at our Easter passage. Our Easter passage, it's about the same length. Yeah. It's about 30 verses.
Yeah.
It'll go quick. Yeah. So don't. All these people are like, good Sunday to take off. I'm gonna watch this one online right now. We're gonna be looking at a pivotal moment, a pivotal moment in the history of the church. Acts has several of these. This is a big one. We had one with the whole Gentile. Can the gospel go to the Gentiles? We had one meeting of the church at that. This council is dealing with the issue of, well, when the Gentiles get saved, how are they supposed to live? Do they have to follow our rules?
Right.
A major question for the early church, and really a major question today as we think about gospel ministry. So we'll answer some big questions next week. We're going to look at a big text, but it's going to flow very quickly. But that's where we're headed. We'll settle that question, and then we'll get back on the road with Paul for his second missionary journey here in the next couple of weeks and start traveling again. But we'll be in Jerusalem next week.
We'll get the maps back out.
Yeah.
So just again, as always, thank you for watching and for coming to church during the week. And we hope that we see you tomorrow. Or I don't know, not tomorrow because I don't know when this comes out. It's Tuesday right now. Hopefully we saw you Wednesday.
Yeah, hopefully.
And hopefully we'll see you Sunday morning. So thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.